one and all, and welcome back to Create Ball. So at my mom's house we have a wood-burning stove, which means that every year we spend some time in the mountains collecting firewood. Segue to this video about what happened this year while we were in the mountains. Partly because a lot happened, but mostly because the entire time I was thinking, this would be a really good video. Is that sad? I think that's sad. Anyway, before we can begin, I need to introduce you guys to some people, since it wasn't just my family collecting wood. Sir Rackfall III's family was also there, and there's a lot of them. So first of all, there was Rackfall's little brother, who we'll call Trek, but 4 of his sisters were also there, including Joshua Logan Price, Drew, Minnie, and Monica. And on top of that, most of my siblings were also there, so hopefully you guys can keep track of everyone. Now that everyone knows each other, let's start off the episode. Let's start with the ride up there. Alright, so originally we were just going to take my mom's car, but it had a generic car problem before we left the driveway, so that was no longer a viable option. Luckily, there were still a few seats left over in the other cars, so I ended up in a car with Sir Rackfall III, Caden, Brayden, Drew, and Minnie. The ride up there was 3 hours already, but we didn't actually leave until like an hour after everyone else, so by the time we got up there, everyone has already set up camp, and it was time to hit the hay. The next morning, I asked someone how much wood we would actually be collecting, and they said that we were filling up 2 trailers, one of which they already started loading the day prior. I looked in the trailer and figured that about 1/10 of the trailer was full, and that the pile of wood was about 100 logs, meaning that we would need around 1,000 logs to fill the trailer, and I assumed we would also need 1,000 logs for the other one, putting the total at just about 2,000. Wow, Cree, you're a total nerd. Yeah, you're right. When we started collecting wood, we formed one of those line things where you pass a log to the next person, then to the next person, then to the next, etc. Anyway, I counted every log I passed on under my breath, and eventually Sir Rackfall III started counting the logs with me. And eventually everyone in the line was just counting all the logs. Somehow, counting the logs turned into naming them. Some of the names included Dusty, Rusty, Crusty, Greg, Wirt, the Great One, Destroyer of Worlds, Conqueror of Kingdoms, Dollar at Mundus, Lord Humility, Joe, and Chicken. I never actually stopped counting the logs, and if you were curious about how close I was with the total number of logs, it took about 1,200 to fill up the trailer, so I was pretty close. After we filled up the first trailer, a couple more people showed up with their own trailers, of course meaning we would also have to fill up their trailers for some reason, but whatever, I guess. At this point, everyone kind of divided in 2 groups. A group that stayed by the trailers and a group that stayed in the forest. I didn't really fit into either group. I started in the forest, but I eventually went out to the trailers. Once I approached them, they told me that they didn't need me, and I explained that they also didn't need me in the forest. So they said, well then I guess no one needs you. Well fine, guess I'll just walk home. Then I started walking down the road that led to the highway. After about 15 minutes, I walked back to the trailer and told them that I got to the highway, and I tried hitchhiking, but no one would pick me up. We finished like 20 minutes later, and after we finished, I wandered around the woods for a minute and found a sign-in sheet in the middle of the woods. So I decided to sign in. I don't remember everything, but here are the main highlights that I do remember. Name, Micah Malloy. Number and party, 2.3 billion. Time of arrival, tomorrow. Time of departure, never. Comments. The forest was pretty cool, but the sign-in sheet was lackluster. I made my way back to the camp and found everyone sitting around the campfire. Technically it wasn't a campfire since we never actually made one, but we had a little circle of chairs that you could totally imagine a fire being in the middle of. When I joined them in their little circle, Cain was talking about weird stuff, as he often does, and eventually he starts talking about how he is Monica's mom. This eventually changed to Cain being the mother of the universe. Yeah, it was really weird, but it's a joke that stuck and will definitely be mentioned in a future video. Then we all went to bed, and the next morning we left, so I guess that's the end of the story.